welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be continuing with my IVF journey series. I had such an amazing, huge response to my last video when I finally opened up about my IVF journey, about my first cycle, and so I decided to continue on with this series, mainly because I think it's really important to keep talking about it and to share my story, and hopefully that will help others out there who are trying to feel less lonely, who are possibly about to go through IVF, who are going through IVF, or who have already gone through IVF. So today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you what I wish I knew before starting IVF, and I'm also going to share an update about my IVF cycle at the end of this video, so if you'd like to see that, then just keep on watching. Alright, so the first thing that I want to talk about today is that when you start your IVF process, it is not like a super quick process. So for instance, when I first started IVF, I was told that as soon as I started my cycle, as soon as I was ready to start this whole process, I was to go in, get my blood work done, and I thought that meant that month, like 2 weeks later, I'd be doing my retrieval. That is definitely not what happened. In my experience, and I'm pretty sure this is pretty common, when you decide that it's time for you to start your IVF cycle, you go in to get your baseline blood work, so that basically helps them understand what your natural levels are of hormones and all that other stuff. I think it detects pregnancy so that they can make sure you're not pregnant before starting this, and then they put you on birth control so that they can manipulate your cycle. So you're kind of starting it and you have a few weeks of not a whole lot going on. You are on a new cycle, you're on birth control, you will possibly get a saline sonogram done, which is going to help them see like what your uterine cavity looks like so that they can get a good understanding of like how healthy everything is. And you'll be working with your insurance company. If you have insurance, that's going to be helping you, and that's kind of what the first month of IVF is. So you're not actually doing a whole lot in that aspect. It's after you stop your birth control packet, that's when like you do all the injections, and then you have your retrieval and your transfer. So to give you an idea of how my cycle was, I started my period September 24th. On the 25th, I went in for my baseline blood draw. October 7th, I had my saline sonogram. November 17th, I had my egg retrieval. And November 22nd, I had my transfer. So about 2 full months is what I spent completely doing IVF from start to finish. So don't go in expecting to start IVF that month. I was a little heartbroken because I was like, wait, I thought I was gonna get pregnant this month, and that's not how it was. So just a heads up for anyone who's starting that it's not that quick. Have patience, you will get there. And then, so speaking about plans, my second thing I wish I knew before starting IVF is that your plan that they give you is subject to change, and it's really not under anyone's control because it's all about how your body handles each step of the process. When I went into IVF, I was just so focused on the end that anytime there was a roadblock or something that was preventing me from moving forward, I got really upset and I felt so impatient. And at the end of the day, there's really nothing that you can do, and stressing out about it is definitely not going to help. So understand that things are gonna come up. For example, after your egg retrieval, you could get OHSS, which is like hyperstimulated ovary syndrome, something like that, and that could prevent you from having a fresh transfer. Maybe you didn't get as many eggs as you thought, and so that could be upsetting, and there's just so many things that could happen, and you just have to be patient because this process is so delicate, and it's so important to just be as stress-free as possible. So if you're going to be starting IVF, no matter how many times you do it, just be patient, have patience, because it is going to work out the way that it will, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about that. The next thing that was probably one of the most shocking things to me, and I wish I knew before starting, is that you're gonna learn so much about your body during this time. So for example, what I mean by that is I have been living my entire life and I had no idea that I had endometriosis. I don't know if they've medically diagnosed it that way yet, but I have a lot of symptoms and signs of it apparently, but I've never known that. So the more I talked to other women who I knew went through the IVF process, they actually said the same thing, that they too had endometriosis and they had no idea. And it seems to be pretty common for women to not know that they had something so wrong with their bodies, like, but everything seemed so normal. So don't be surprised if you go in there and they say, you know what, I think you might have this. It's eye-opening and it helps you really understand the entire IVF process. I know how scary it is to discover that like something might be wrong with your body, but just trust that if they're not worried about it, you shouldn't be worried about it either. And to kind of go with this thing I wish I knew, because you may learn different things about your body, it is very likely that you'll have to get a hysteroscopy or a laparoscopy in the middle of doing this process. And they're actually very helpful. When I first learned I had to get surgery, I was just so devastated. I thought something was so wrong with me, and it turns out it's super common and it's a super normal surgery for people to have, and it's so helpful in the IVF process. It's going to help really prep your uterine cavity to accept an embryo. So don't freak out. It's such a normal thing to get done. And I know it's so scary to be like, oh my God, I had no idea something was wrong with me and now I have to get surgery, and oh my gosh, this is just bigger than I thought. And I know it's so stressful, but just know that so many women have to do it, and it's normal. And it's a good thing, because then you're really knowing that your uterus is prepped and ready for that embryo. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, I think, is just extremely important to talk about, and I feel like not a lot of people discuss this. But in my experience, this is what I've found, and I wish I knew, is that when you start IVF, they typically give you a line sheet of everything you're going to be paying for, and at the bottom is that big scary number that personally when I saw it I wanted to throw up because it is just so much money, and it was scary. So let's say that your IVF cost is they estimate it to be $15,000. What I wish I knew before starting is that there are so many extra costs that are going to raise that number a lot. I knew part of that, but then there were other things I didn't, and I just want to reiterate that it's so important to be mindful that when you go into this is such an expensive process. So for instance, if you have to get a hysteroscopy, that's not a part of the total. If you have to get a laparoscopy, that's not a part of the total. If you have to get anesthesia, any of the operating visits, there's just so many things that are gonna cost you more money than you realize. It's kind of scary, but I think if you go into it knowing that and accepting that, it won't be as shocking. The ultrasounds and the blood work and the office visits are a completely separate number from that total they give you, at least in my experience. And for my fifth and final thing I wish I knew, has to also do with this total, is that the medication. Let me tell you, if you've been through IVF, you know what I'm gonna say. The medication is not a part of that total, and I'm just gonna be really blunt and honest. The medication alone is about $3,000 to $4,000 out of your pocket. For me, because I hadn't hit my deductible yet, that's what we were looking at, was paying up front all that medication, which is super scary, but it's necessary because at least my clinic, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other clinics, want you to have all your medication before we really get into it. Because once you go into your like medication consultation meeting, they're gonna double check that you have everything, and that's a great time for them to realize, oh, you didn't get sent that? Well, now you have to order that, and hey, that's another, you know, however much money that injection costs. So it's very pricey, and I had no idea that my medication was that expensive. So I'm just gonna clear the air now and let you guys know, if you've never done IVF and you're about to, just be prepared because the medication is very expensive. So at this point, I want to give you guys an IVF update. I think the last time that when I did my first video, I was about to go into my first hysteroscopy surgery, which was January 17th. So here's what's happened since then. I had my first hysteroscopy surgery January 17th, and about a week after that was done, they did a biopsy on the lining because they discovered some polyps in there and a little bit of scar tissue. So they did a biopsy and they discovered that I had inflammation in my lining. When that happens, it makes it almost impossible for an embryo to attach to the lining because it's just not a very like fit space for a baby to grow. So That was really upsetting, and they put me on 2,000 milligrams of antibiotics for 10 days, which made me just like absolutely ill every single day. I had migraines, I was nauseous, I threw up a few times, like it just wasn't good, it wasn't doing well, but I just had to suffer through the antibiotics to get this figured out. I did my second hysteroscopy surgery February 4th, and the biopsy came back this past Saturday and it showed no improvement. So that was really upsetting, and I'm still showing signs of inflammation. So at this point, I'm on a new antibiotic that's much less, and I'm actually waiting for a call from my nurse right now. She's gonna let me know if I'm having surgery tomorrow or if I'm having surgery on Tuesday. So I don't really know exactly when my next surgery is, but again, it's to do a biopsy to see if the inflammation has changed at all. And I think at this point, because we've been so aggressive with the treatment to get rid of the inflammation, they basically have decided that if it doesn't look much better, we just have to move forward, which is kind of scary because I just don't know if my transfer will be successful knowing that I have inflammation. But after trying so many antibiotics, there's really nothing else that you can do. So I'm just praying, and I hope you guys pray with me that this works, because I don't know how I feel right now. I feel very unsure of the future. I don't know if we're going to be doing a transfer. I don't know if we are, and if the inflammation will be gone. I just don't know. So I really hope that this all clears up and everything gets figured out. But at this moment in time, I'm just waiting to hear what they have to say, and it's unfortunate. And this goes back to my point of saying how your plan can change at any time. I'm filming this video. Today is actually kind of a difficult day because today was supposed to be my transfer. I don't want to cry, but so it's really like, it sucks that it changed so much, but I've been so much more patient this time around, knowing what I knew from my first one. So that's why I wanted to make these videos, to help anybody going through that. I know what it feels like. And if you guys ever have any questions about IVF that you want me to talk about, any video ideas, you can shoot them down below. But I thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more IVF journey videos, give this video a big thumbs up, and make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as the little bell icon next to it, so every time I upload a video, you're the first to get notified. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.